Okay, let's go ahead and get started. This is Eric Olson. Welcome to the Lean Six Sigma Training Forum. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my desktop here so you can see me, and I can see a lot of you. So welcome once again. So this is going to be an interesting experiment. We've got a bunch of people online. Just so you know, it was interesting watching people sort of come on. If your microphone's open, we can all hear you sort of chatting and talking away there. Feel free to make use of this time to talk to your fellow students or connect. The way this Zoom video system works is that generally whoever's talking gets the main screen, and I don't see that happening right now. But let me see what I can. Well, I'm not going to worry about it. So I'm learning how to use this Zoom system, and you guys are going to help me learn to use this also. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back and I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go ahead and go through some slides that hopefully will get us started and going in the right direction here. All right, so like I said, this is the Lean Six Sigma Training Forum. The reason I call it a forum is because we actually have really three flavors of students that are all in this class. So I've got Greenbelt students from my IT 303 class at Cal Poly that are in here, so that's Greenbelt training. We've got transactional Greenbelt training that's going on, and these are people from across the Cal State University system who are trying to get Lean Six Sigma Greenbelt trained, transactional Greenbelt trained. I'll tell you a little bit more about what that is. Then we've also got people that are taking Lean Six Sigma Black Belt training at the same time. One of the reasons we can use this forum format and have all flavors of students here at the same time is because you guys are all taking separate online training courses, but at the same time, you're all moving through the same essential body of knowledge for Lean Six Sigma, which is taking you through the DMAIC process, or define, measure, analyze, improve, control. So as everybody's sort of going through those same steps, we can share best practices, insights across all these different levels, and we can all get smart together. So this is what the agenda is going to look like. So I'm going to do a little welcome. We're going to do some introductions, also get a little bit familiar with some of the course controls here so that we can do that as we go through the summer. We'll talk about course goals, the syllabus, and the process we're going to use to manage this class. I'll talk about the mini project requirements and process we'll use for that. And then at the end, we'll wrap up with answering individual questions and technical issues with regards to, maybe PC and hardware questions. We're not going to be using PolyLearn, and we'll talk about more STEAM. And actually, that sixth agenda item, that's something I do normally during the school year. So that's the fall, winter, and spring quarter, Whitebeat Inc. We're not going to be able to do that online, but it'll be something that'll come up probably later on in the course as we talk about things. Okay, so that's the agenda. That's what to expect. So it was a little bit by way of introduction, and let's see here. Okay. One of the things from a Lean Six Sigma standpoint is if you talk to people that are in the Lean community, everybody has what they call their personal Lean journey. And the Lean journey starts with when they first heard about Lean or found out about Lean Six Sigma, and then what has happened in their career and their lives that they sort of progressed and tried to use that information. So I'm going to share a little bit about my Lean story. You can think about your Lean story or your Lean journey starting right here. If you're not familiar with Lean or you haven't been exposed to it before, this is where your Lean journey starts. So by way of introduction, so my name is Eric Olson. I'm a professor at the Orfalea College of Business in Industrial Technology and Packaging. I am the department chair. I teach this particular course. This is the only course I teach now as department chair. And I really do it because it's a little bit of a labor of love. So what has happened in my life with Lean Six Sigma is I was able to turn my avocation into my vocation. So sort of taken back, when I first learned about Lean, I was starting as a new manufacturing engineer at Hewlett Packard. And as I took on that job, this was in around 1989, I working for Hewlett Packard, it's a great opportunity. I thought, oh, great company. Here's a world-class company, really knows what they're doing. But as I was getting more and more involved in that, it seemed like, there's all of this sort of firefighting, running around, chasing, phone calls. It didn't really seem like people knew exactly what they were doing. So I started asking around and said, well, there must be a better way. There must be somebody that knows how to do this manufacturing engineering job or manufacturing management job. And I was lucky enough to take a seminar by some folks that pointed me to some books by a person named Richard Schomburger. And he wrote some books in the 80s, middle 80s, called World Class Manufacturing. And in there, he was describing the kinds of things that we're going to talk about in Lean Six Sigma, essentially Japanese manufacturing techniques, because the Japanese had discovered, with some help from some Americans, by the way, kind of a better approach to manufacturing than some of the mass production that was going on. So I learned about this stuff. I was really sort of taken with it, started some book study groups within my engineering group at Hewlett Packard. And as I moved up in project management and eventually to the department management, we started to use these techniques and philosophies in an approach to our job in product engineering at Hewlett Packard in San Jose. And it was kind of a little different. Most of the manufacturing at that time was actually going over in Singapore and Malaysia. And as a product engineering group, it is our responsibility really to transfer products from the R&D groups in the Bay Area over to Singapore and Malaysia where they're manufactured. We actually didn't do the computers and the printers you hear about HP. We were back in the fun days when HP did a lot of interesting things. So our main focus was in fiber optics. We're actually one of the largest fiber optic manufacturers in the world at the time. So as that was going on, we were getting better and better at applying these techniques and the things that you're going to learn. Our group got a reputation for knowing this stuff pretty well. And at one point, I was at a meeting of worldwide manufacturing managers at Hewlett Packard for the components group, and came in a little bit late to a meeting one time. And the manufacturing manager, or the worldwide manufacturing manager, Tan B&E, he was actually headquartered out of Malaysia, saw me try to sneak into the back of the room and very directly said, no, you don't get to sit in the back of the room. You came to the meeting late. You can come sit down in the front, right? So I had to walk through the room of all these manufacturing managers. There's probably about 75 of these managers in the room. So I sat down in the front, which I was a little embarrassed about, but I did get to talk to Tan B&E because he sat right next to me after he was finished with his portion of the presentation. And we started comparing notes, and he was sharing with me that he had also read about some of these techniques and was interested in applying these, across the organization. We had a worldwide supply chain problem, if you will, in that to make a little, 7-cent LED or fiber optic transmitter receiver type product that sells for 7 cents, and we make millions of these things. It would take about 80 days from the time that would start in our Bay Area wafer fabs and was transferred and shipped over to Malaysia for slice and dice, and then wound up in final assemblies in our plant in Singapore. And if you sort of think about it, that was about $80 million worth of inventory tied up in that supply chain. And we knew that if we could shorten the time it takes to manufacture these things, and if we could cut it in half, that would actually cut the amount of inventory we had tied up in half. And that would result in an immediate, like $40 million of cash, freed up that we didn't have to invest in maintaining that business. So I took on the task of being the worldwide manufacturing education manager, which was to teach people about these techniques and how to approach these things. And at the same time, it was a big project to try to get, Hewlett Packard to improve in this area. That was fun. I did that for a couple of years. Then I was able to become a plant manager for a microwave assembly operation in Santa Clara, where I, again, started applying these techniques at about 18 teams on 3 different shifts. Applying these techniques to make microwave transmitter and receiver assemblies, faster.
You can get pasta Outback for one of those places in Hacienda.
So one of the things you guys could do too is if you mute your microphone, that would also be helpful. I guess I should have put some of those mechanics things up before the introduction. Anyway, became worldwide manufacturing education manager for a couple of years. Then we're doing this same sort of thing as production manager in microwave assembly at Hewlett Packard. And then Hewlett Packard got to the point where they offered a voluntary severance package for people that were interested in maybe leaving the organization. There was some right sizing going on, and that affected my organization at the time. And so I took that severance package and decided to go back and get my PhD in operations management. I went to Ohio State. So my PhD, I actually studied this thing, these techniques, and learned a little bit more about their background and why and how they worked, and used that to transition into what's now my second career, which is being a professor here at Cal Poly. So this is my first job out of school, really. I've been at Cal Poly for 13 years, teaching a bunch of different things around production and operations management and quality control, but all of them with this sort of Lean Six Sigma flavor or underlying philosophy that we're going to share with you in this course. In addition to doing the teaching, department chair, also I am the director of Central Coast Lean, which is essentially a lean community that supports lean implementation across the Central Coast. We do forums, workshops, and an annual summit that hopefully some of you can get involved in. We can talk about that later. But that's also a real fun thing for me. We've also recently started to do some things in a more systematic way with the Cal State University system and also the UC and the community colleges, because everybody is starting to recognize that these techniques and things that we're going to talk about apply not only to manufacturing, but also apply to service industries, hospitals, and certainly higher education. So we're going to be talking about that. So there's my a little index card of what my experience are. Some of you might not have as ability to produce as handsome a drawing as that, or have as key features that show up in a cartoon like that. So what we'll do is we'll try to get a real picture of you somehow so we can kind of keep track. We used to actually do physical cards, physical index cards for all my classes. So I've got about 12 years of those. We recently switched over to what we call our electronic index card. And so we're gonna use a Google form to have you sort of submit some information so that we can sort of keep track of you and know all the people that have gotten this kind of training from our organization here at Cal Poly. All right, I'm going to take a little bit of a deep breath, and I'm going to go ahead and move on. It looks like we've got about 25 participants on there. I think we've got 35 total that have signed up for the class. So it looks like we're doing reasonably well. We'll have to find a few lost sheep, I guess. So let me just see what's in here. Okay. So let's go ahead and move forward here. Let's see. Okay. So let's do some let's do a little sort of meeting management things, or at least get familiar with how to use Zoom. So you've got a little thing. If you hover over the bottom of your screen, it should pull up a little bar, a toolbar, like the one shown in the picture here. And there's some things that you can do as a participant. So one of the things that you can do is you can mute and unmute your microphone. So what I would like you to do is go ahead and try that now. If you could mute your microphone and unmute it, so we can sort of see what that looks like, see what that feels like. The other thing you can do is you can go ahead and turn your camera on and off. One of the things we're experimenting with, I am here right now in Charlotte, North Carolina. All week I was at a Lean Leadership Conference and participating in that. So I'm in North Carolina right now. Nice place, a little bit on the humid side. I kind of wish I was back in California. But what you could do is you could, you can mute your microphone if you're not speaking. The other thing is you can turn your camera on and off with this sort of bandwidth situation. Here I am in a hotel room, not really certain about what the bandwidth capability is. I don't know if everybody can turn their videos on. We can go ahead and try that. Turn your videos on, turn them off, and we'll see if this bandwidth can sort of withstand that kind of load and abuse. A little bit of an experiment. You can also view the participants list. So if you want to look and see who else is online, you can go ahead and view that participants list. Now, when you do that, hit that participants list, you also have the opportunity to rename, and I'm going to turn on my annotation capability here. And I'm going to draw, and let's see here. And yeah, so if you look at down here, now I'm drawing on the screen here. So you have the ability to rename yourself, and if you put in and it just sort of shows up as your email address, sometimes that's not real helpful in chatting and talking with other people in the class. So if you could, please put your full name or how you like to be called, first name, last name. And then if you could, for the purpose of this, please put what your location is. So if you can see my participants designation, Eric Olson, Charlotte, North Carolina. If you want to do -slow, that would be fine. If you're in another country, let us know what country you're in. But that's a little bit of a way for everybody to get to know who you are and where you're actually taking this class from, since it is online. Okay. And let's see, any questions with that? Is everybody sort of successful turning video on and off and muting? See, I am going to manage participants. Okay. All right, let me go ahead and sort of move on to the next slide here. There's something else I want to. Let's see, I just kicked out of my share here. Let me go back and share my screen again. Okay, the other thing I want to do is let's try to see if we can work with the hand raising feature. So I think the hand raise, and I'm going to introduce another person right now. So another person that you're going to want to get to know is Laura Sly. So Laura Sly is in our is my teaching assistant for this course. She took this course a few quarters ago, and she's now part of my lean team and has sort of helped me out on courses during the year, or the last couple of courses. And now she's going to be sort of my right-hand person, if you will, with helping you manage the class. And you'll see some emails from her occasionally reminding you to do various things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop share here and see if, so Laura, can you unmute your microphone?
Sure. Hi. How is this?
Okay, yeah. So if you unmute your microphone and you talk, it looks like we get you sort of center screen and big there. So this is Laura.
Hi, everyone.
Okay,
so be your TA.
Okay, so Laura's gonna help me with this class, and also particularly with we're gonna do a little attendance thing here in a second. So Laura's gonna be sort of helping us track that. So let me go back here. You can raise your hand. You can change your screen name. You can share your screens, and we'll play with that maybe at a future time. You can chat with individuals. So there's a chat function here that you can try. So if I tend to be rambling on, or for some reason my sound goes out and you want to try to get me some attention or Laura's attention, you can go ahead and do the chat room. We are recording this session, so we're going to record this session and then we'll post it where you can get it, and we'll talk about that a little bit, probably on a Google Drive. So there'll be recordings of this, so if you occasionally miss a session and you want to catch up on what went on online, you can go ahead and do that, all right? You can choose a video layout. I'm not exactly sure what pin video is, and I haven't done anything with co-annotating on a screen share. So since I can draw lines, if you will, on things, maybe you'd be able to do that also. All right, like I said, this is an experiment. So we've got 3 different categories of students, really. So we've got people that are doing a transactional green belt. So I think there's like 3 people right now in the class. We might get a couple more that are going to add in. But the transactional green belt is the green belt body of knowledge. It's about 70 hours of online training. The only thing they cut out of that is some of the stuff that's more particular to manufacturing that is not in there. And for example, there might be a gauge R&R study, which is real popular or used a lot in manufacturing, which is not so much used in office and transactional environments. So it cut out, maybe some of that sort of stuff. So it's a little bit lighter on the statistics, but still pretty much the real deal. So that's like 70 hours of online training. We've also got people, and this is the bulk of you are in my green belt class. So there's 80 hours of online training. This is a full green belt training, 80 hours worth. And then there's about 3 people or potentially 4 people that are actually going for their black belt as part of this, this class. So the black belt is actually 140 hours, and it's the same first 80 hours, but then the additional 60 hours is advanced statistical techniques and approaches. So the way we've set this up and the way these 3 classes run simultaneously is that all you guys are essentially doing the first 80 hours the same, and that's going to take us through till the end of August. And then the black belts are going to go ahead and keep on going in the fall with their class. We're going to cut down on the meeting frequency for the black belts once the fall hits, and we're just going to meet every other week. But I'll show you a little bit about what that's going to look like. All right, so now I've got our first little exercise I want to do, and this will get you guys used to talking to at least each other and pushing some of the buttons there. But we've got the capability to put you guys into what are called chat rooms. So here's the chat room exercise I'm going to do with you. And it's just going to take 6 minutes, so it's going to be relatively fast. but let's see what you guys can do with this. So I'm going to put you in chat rooms for 6 minutes total. And, maybe if you had a little scratch pad or something, you can sort of write these notes down. So 6 minutes total. In that 6 minutes, you're going to introduce yourself to the other participants in the chat room, and there'll be about 3 people in the chat room. 3, we'll go with like a 2 to 3 format, I think, as far as the number of people in the chat room. You introduce yourself to the other participants. I at least want you to exchange emails, because I think it's important when we go on these online sessions, if you think you're isolated and all alone in doing this, you don't have anybody to talk to or compare notes with, you can kind of think of that same sort of situation for those of you that are currently at Cal Poly or have experience with one of the universities. That could be a real lonely situation. So I want you to exchange emails so you can at least contact somebody else or know somebody else in the class. If you missed something or don't understand something, you can try contacting them maybe before you email Laura or myself. And then I want you to take a shot at answering a couple questions for each other while you're in the chat room. First question is, why are you in this course? Right? I'm doing it because it's required. I need to get my technology management requirement done. I'm actually trying to do this to, get an advance in my career. I want to put something on my resume. So what is it? What's the reason you're in this course? Your parents heard about Lean Six Sigma and they wanted you to do this. What's the reason? And then I also want you to share with each other what your experience is in Lean Six Sigma. If you've had some internship experience or they're doing this at your company or somewhere. And, or if you don't have any experience in Lean Six Sigma, what's your impression of it? What have you heard about it? What do you think? What's the curiosity factor here? Those are the questions I'd like you to do. Now, if you think about that in Lean terms, we're talking about, if we've got 6 minute total and you got 3 people in your chat room, that's a maximum of 2 minutes apiece. And I'm going to let each one of your chat rooms sort of self-manage. But if you see that somebody is going to, take up all your 6 minutes and nobody else can get to say anything, that would probably be a bad outcome. All right. I'm not grading you on this, but it's something that we're going to need to get used to doing because this is one of the functions that we're going to use in this class. Okay. Before we go into the chat room, is there any questions as far as what the requirements are? You're not going to be able to see this screen, or I don't think you're going to be able to see the screen. So like I said, please jot down the requirements and what's going to be going on as far as this chat room exercise. Any questions? If so, unmute and yell it out.
Oh, right.
I'm clear, Eric.
You're all good? Okay. All right,
good.
so I'm going to go into some breakout rooms here. And this is going to randomly and automatically put you into breakout rooms. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and we're going to put you into. So I've got you, let's see, so we got 24. So it should be, let's put you like in 8 breakout rooms and see how that goes. All right, so you're going to have 6 minutes. I'm going to set a timer and pull you back in. So make it happen. There you go. So we've got, I see that you're all in there. I'm going to open all rooms.
Hello?
Let's see. So am I in a breakout room?
Bild. Wow, was ist das?
Oh. Warte,
Was?
nein.
Ja, warum?
Also, das ist ein Artikel von so ganz vielen europäischen Leuten, die in London leben, in England leben, in UK. Und was damit hier passieren würde.
Ich weiß es nicht. Hm,
Was ist für Tendenz gemacht?
warte mal.
TCOLETTI@calpoly.edu.
Okay, awesome.
So Amelia, you asked for me to join? You tried the help button? Is it Malia? You've got your speaker on. Oh, you can't unmute your computer. Okay, hang on a second. Let me just read what you have to say there. Chat. Whoop. I apologize. Somehow I lost what I was doing here. Okay, back here. Let's see. All right, Mila. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and try to unjoin here. Okay. Like we're coming back. All right, so everybody back in here. Okay, so I think so. We got like 25 people back, so that's pretty good. Is you have 24 people go into breakout rooms and 25 people come back. But I think that's because it didn't put me in one as the host. So I want to hear back though from you guys about what that breakout room experience was like. As I said, I'm starting to experiment with this. This is the first time we've done that. Was that too much time? Did you learn something? Was that useful? Not so useful? What do you think? Somebody talk to me.
I could talk. My name is Kiwi, and I think the breakout room was pretty useful just because you know, you kind of get to know people one-on-one in a sense.
Right.
I kind of have to get a face-to-face and put a name to the face. And I mean, I met Miles. He's actually slow here, so which is pretty good because I'm in slow, and I'll be able to like meet up when he's gonna help me out. I'm gonna help him out. So yeah. So I mean, it was really helpful, at least for me, I think.
All right, good. And do you have your so I'm looking at the sort of little screen here. Do you have your screen on at this point?
Now I do.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, because like I think when you have your video on, it'll track over to your picture if you're actually talking. So we need to remember to turn your video on if you're going to go ahead and talk.
Sounds good.
Anybody? Thank you for that. Anybody else have any observations?
Well, one thing I noticed on Tom here is that pretty much every group chat I've been in, it's the same experience where the first few minutes are always just dealing with technical issues and debugging it.
Yeah.
Like Malia said she's having some issue with your audio, which is totally fine. And then that happens. So
Yeah. No. Yeah, and I guess that's another reason why I wanted to do this too, because I thought you guys could self-solve a lot of your problems, you know, just comparing your experiences like that. So I appreciate that too. Any other observations on how that works or what the value was in doing that?
Yeah, I think it's great, Eric. It's good to leverage our technology these days and find different avenues to remove roadblocks. I definitely appreciate that, and I think our team was pretty efficient in gathering the minimum requirements.
Okay, it looks like you're pretty experienced in these lean report outs, right? So you must do a lot of those at Zodiac, huh?
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, good. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit for us to get used to this technology, and I appreciate you guys dealing with this and helping us all get smarter. So you actually got your first two assignments. Well, first assignments that you need to take care of. So there's the first two more steam sessions that you need to do by Sunday of week 1. So that's this Sunday. Completion on a more steam session means you've completed the quiz. So for session 1 and 2, you need to complete the quiz, and we'll take a look at what that looks like. You also, we will give you access. Laura and I, some way, will figure out how to give you access to that electronic index card, the e-form, and I also want that done by Sunday of week 1. And one way we make this class is lean. We're going to try to make all the assignments due. It's always going to be 11 p.m. of Sunday. So 11 p.m. Sunday. So whenever you see a Sunday week 1, it's 11 p.m. Sunday is what you're shooting for. I would also like each one of you to help me know you a little bit better. I would like to get a resume from you, and we'll ask you to provide a resume. So I get a little more detail. So the index card really gives me an overview maybe of what some of your experiences are, who you are, what your email is, that sort of thing. But a resume is a more detailed approach. One thing you could also take a shot at, and I would be open to this, is that at some point you're going to want to put this, the fact that you've taken this Lean Six Sigma training on your resume. And if you could put something on your resume like Lean Six Sigma Green Belt training in process, so it's not Green Belt certified, but at the end of this course, you're going to say that you're Lean Six Sigma trained. And that's either Lean Six Sigma Green Belt trained or Lean Six Sigma Black Belt trained. And a lot of times, just having that on your resume is enough to pull you to the top of the pile, because there's people out there that want people with this kind of training and experience. And one of the things that I'm about from a personal mission standpoint, and I'm also involved with some other professors that we talk about this, is we are in the process of trying to put out the first generation of lean ready graduates. So what happens right now is people, learn about Lean Six Sigma on the job, if you will. But now we've got people that are going to come out with an undergraduate degree education, and they're already going to be exposed to this kind of thinking, these kind of techniques, these kind of tools. And that's going to, I think, be a very beneficial thing in industry, and people are going to really start appreciating that. And I'd like to have Cal Poly build their reputation around being able to do that really well. Another requirement that I'm just going to give you a heads up to, it's not really due, there's a quiz, a movie quiz that's due Sunday of week 2, or the quiz is going to be due Sunday of week 2. But what I'd like you to do is I would like you to watch a video. It's Stu Leonard Jr., and there's a little YouTube link you can see on the bottom of your screen there. We'll go ahead and provide that link to you. I'm not sure if you can screen grab that or anything like that, but we'll send out a message that gives you that link to that video. It's about 40 minutes long, but it's one of the best customer service videos I have ever seen, and it's something that people that take this class, they might not remember much about the class, but they remember the Stu Leonard video. So I'd like you to watch that. I'd like you to watch it by our next meeting, which is next Wednesday, and we might chat about it a little bit. Maybe we'll put people in breakout rooms and ask them to share their observations on what they thought about that Stu Leonard video and how it applies to the class. There's 2 types of quizzes. Well, actually, there's 3 types of quizzes. So there's the more STEAM quizzes. That's the quizzes on the online training material you're taking with more STEAM. There are movie quizzes, and the movie quizzes are always the same, I think 3 questions. And Laura, you could correct me if I get this wrong. But the 3 questions are, what were the key points from the video or the movie? How does it apply to the class? And then I think we have a 3rd question on there that says, how could it potentially help or apply to my mini project? So there are those 3 questions. And then we have there's another type of quiz, which is our lecture quiz. So not for this week, because I'm not going to quiz you on what we're talking about tonight, but in the future, when we have guest speakers, guest lecturers come in, I'm going to ask you the same 3 questions, like what were the key points from the guest lecturer, how does it apply to the class, and how could you potentially apply it to your mini projects. So we'll provide you a place to go ahead and take that quiz. It's all sort of short answer type things. I'm not trying to kill you with these quizzes, but we use those to make sure that you're engaging with the material and engaging with the course. One of the failure paths we've learned with online training is, people get isolated, they don't track, they sort of think they can, do all 80 hours of online training in the last, 40 hours of the week when the final exam is due. So we want to make sure that you guys are moving along with the material and we're all understanding this together. Okay. All right. Any questions about those assignments? What that should look like, or we'll get you'll see what this stuff looks like, and we'll get a little smarter as we go along here.
Actually, I have a question.
Oh, sure, please.
Where will we be seeing the assignments that you assign to us other than the online course and like those quizzes?
Yeah. So one of the things when I teach this at Cal Poly, of course, we have PolyLearn.
Yeah.
Where everybody sort of goes, and that's where we usually do this stuff.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, but because we're doing this multiple participant class where I've got green belts, transactional green belts, and black belts, not everybody can get access to PolyLearn. So if you're not at Cal Poly, you can't get access to PolyLearn.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. So what we did last summer, and I think I'm going to do the same thing again, is we used a Google Drive. And we posted things, and we used Google Forms to do quizzes and that sort of thing, right? So there is an outside chance we can get a sort of a renegade PolyLearn or a Moodle that I can just sort of port that stuff over to, but we'll work on that. But I'm thinking this week it'll be some sort of Google Drive access. Okay. Okay,
cool. And that's still in the works, obviously, right?
Still in the works. We'll get a message out in the next day or two, right, as to what that looks like.
Okay. Cool,
all right. Thanks for the question. Let's see, Judy, you got your hand raised?
Yeah, I just wanted to find out for the 11 p.m. deadline for assignments on Sundays, is that local time wherever you are? Is that Pacific time? Is that you're in North Carolina?
Oh man, you're pretty technical on that. For us it's always 11 p.m. California time. Is that
alrighty?
Is that okay? I think that's the best convention. What we do is at that 11 p.m. we take a snapshot essentially of all the assignments and quizzes that have been completed and assignments that are turned in, and we use that snapshot to judge on-time completion. So if once we take that, we're allowed to take that snapshot at 11 p.m. Now, the way that is actualized, so one thing we talk about in Lean and in Lean Six Sigma is the idea of an operational definition. So the target definition is 11 p.m. on Sunday. We operationalize that is whenever I or Laura get up Monday morning and take the snapshot, that's when it really happens, okay? Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Thanks for that question. All right. So I've been sort of talking like everybody knows what Lean Six Sigma thinking is or what Lean Six Sigma is, and we're going to certainly get this more depth, and this is what a lot of this online training is going to help you understand. But from my perspective, I think of Lean Six Sigma as really having three parts to it. And those three parts can be translated into asking, these three questions about some problem or issue that we're looking at. The first question is, what is the value? What is it that we're trying to deliver? What's the outcome, or what's the good thing that we want to have happen? So what's the value? And value is always determined in the eyes of the final customer. So what does the customer want? Not the value isn't what my boss wants. It's not what accounting wants. It's what does the customer want, right? And then the next question is, what's the process? What's the delivery method? How do we get value to the customer? What are the steps that go on? So what's the process? And then the last question is are we involving people doing the work in the problem-solving process? So in Lean, we don't think that it's not lean unless the people are really involved in fixing it. So it's not a dictatorial process where we got super smart bosses or we've got smart engineers that are telling people what the answers are, but the people actually doing the work, if they're involved and they're continuously improving and problem solving, then we've got a lean situation on our hands. So if you want to turn that into a little bit more of a definitional type thing, it's maintaining or increasing value while reducing process waste by involving associates in problem solving. Might be a good sort of definition, and think about that definition as you do your online training and try to get a better understanding of what you think lean is. All right. The other thing I wanted to sort of say before we sort of go on, Lean Six Sigma. Lean Six Sigma actually combines sort of two bodies of knowledge or two sets of tools and philosophical approaches to continuous improvement and quality control. There's the lean portion, which is mainly one way to describe the lean portion would be trying to get the average right. So you're trying to get the process so that it doesn't have a lot of inefficiencies or waste, or it's more simple, it's less complex, it's more straightforward in what it's trying to do to deliver value. So that's the lean portion. The Six Sigma portion is a more of a sort of a statistical sort of approach that looks at the variation in that process. So if you think of lean as trying to tackle the average, can I get the typical process right? Six Sigma then comes in and starts to look at how can I reduce that variation down? How can I make it so that I get that average every time, or I get closer to the average every time? And a while back, people said, these are not two incompatible ideas, and they work. It's like Reese's peanut butter cups, two great ideas that work great together, right? So that's why we talk about it now as Lean Six Sigma or Lean Six Sigma thinking. Here are the goals to the course. These are the things that you're going to be able to do following this course. You're going to be able to communicate using Lean Six Sigma concepts. You'll be able to talk to people in these sorts of terms, in terms of value and of waste, and of process and involvement of people, so you'll be able to communicate using these concepts. We're going to be thinking about an organization as a collection of processes. So there's always two things. There's always value, and then there's process. And organizations really are just a collection of processes trying to put out value to some set of customers or to some stakeholder base. So we're going to relate overall Lean Six Sigma concepts to overall business mission and objectives. So the business mission and objectives, that's the value. That's the thing that we're trying to do at a fairly high level, right? And then we might be able to sort of break that down, of course, but how does this relate to getting what the business or the organization, what those objectives are? We're going to evaluate the capability of processes. We're going to learn to analyze processes. We're going to use that. We're going to do that using something called the DMAIC model. So it's a 5-step model that consists of define, measure, analyze, improve, control. So that's the Lean Six Sigma model that we're going to look at. We're going to cover a wide range of process improvement techniques and approaches, mostly team-based. It's also going to include statistical approaches. And we're going to look at contextual factors. When does this stuff work? When do you pull out this tool versus that tool? We're going to try to make sure that you guys are competent in trying to make those sorts of decisions. And ultimately, what we're about is trying to deliver meaningful change, meaningful results for organizations. How to make these changes and ultimately how to make changes in organizations and also make them stick. Because to be frank, a lot of these tools and techniques, if they just sort of stand alone, they don't stand the test of time unless you put in some work or do some things to make them stick. And we're going to talk about that, especially when we get into the control portion of the DMAIC model. So this is the breakdown on the course elements, and I usually have for each specific class there's a sheet like this that can break down. I would refer you to the specific syllabus for the course that you're taking, either the transactional, the green belt, or the black belt, and that's where the comes in. You have to complete the engine room training, which is the 70, 80, or 140 hours training at moresteam.com. Hopefully all of you have access at this point in time. In doing that, you then need to complete the online quizzes. So those are going to be 20% of your grade, and I'd like you to try to accomplish that with a weighted average of at least 80% or better. When you do those quizzes online, they're set up so that you get 2 chances for every question. So if you don't get one question right, you can ask for a second question from that same category. It's open book, open note. You can go back and find the answer or whatever. So it's really pretty easy to get above that 80, but it's going to cause you to get a little bit of exercise and make sure you're doing due diligence in answering those quiz questions. Class participation. So I've got a list that I'll share with you, but that's going to be 10% of your grade. Submitting those resumes and on-time completion of quizzes and getting your index card. Those are examples of what class participation looks like. You have to do a Lean Six Sigma mini project. So this is 25% of your grade, and I'll describe what that mini project looks like. But that's a significant chunk. Now, these last two things, this is where there's a little bit of a difference between the transactional green belt and the other two categories of students. So for the transactional green belt, we decided not to put the final exam into the course. So transactional green belt folks, you guys can breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief that you don't have to do the 3-hour test as part of this course. If you do decide that you want to proceed on to certification, though, the 3-hour test for transactional green belt is going to be part of the certification process. So for green belt certification, you generally have to take the course, pass a 3-hour test, have 120 hours worth of related work experience, and do a project. So it's really just a question of sort of where we bundle those things. So for the transactional green belt, the 3-hour test is bundled with the project and the 120 hours worth of training. For the rest of you, for my green belts and my black belts, we're actually at the end of the course, you'll have to do the practice test and either the 3-hour test if you're a green belt or the 5-hour final exam. That'll actually be in December for the black belt students. Okay, any questions about that? What that looks like or what that'll be? Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about some of those individual items here in a second here. So here's the breakdown on class participation. So class participation is about 125 points or 165 points. It's worth 10% of your grade. So there's for example, index cards are 3 points, resumes 3 points, draft charter 6 points. Submitting those movie quizzes, 48 minimum. So there's 8 movies you're going to be able to see. I think there's actually 9 movies, but you need to do like at least 8 of those. 8 of the lectures, lecture quizzes, and 8 of those 48 points. In participation, so this is kind of making sure you guys are all sort of tracking and completing these online sessions. We're going to give you 3 points if you submit that online quiz for More Steam by 11 p.m. on Sunday. Okay, and you get 3 points for each time you do that. There's something called a more steam quickie Kaizen assignment towards the end of the course. I'm going to ask you to do for 6 points. We haven't really made use of random attendance checks. I think what we'll do is we'll probably eliminate that element, and just going to go ahead and track the movie and the lecture quizzes. So if you're doing those movie and the lecture quizzes, that's going to count for your attendance. And then, other assignments might be as many as 6 points. I don't know what that might be, but if we can figure out something that would be good for you to do, help you learn or whatnot, we might incentivize you with giving you some points to complete that. Okay, so that's what class participation looks like, and Laura's going to be key in sort of helping me track that as we go through. This is what the sort of layout looks like for what is going to happen in the class. Let me just go back to the Greenbelt. So this is the Greenbelt block plan. The transactional Greenbelt is real similar. This is in the syllabus. You can see what is going to happen each week. And so, for example, in this section here, you got session 1, Introduction to Lean Six Sigma. Session 2, Define Starting a Project and Leading Teams. Those are 4.6 and 5.6 hours, respectively. So More Steam has gone through, and based on their database of how long it takes people to get through those are pretty typical times for being able to complete those. You might be able to go a little faster if you're familiar with the material, or a little bit slower. You need to target completing that by the 26th. So that's the Sunday completion. So you need to complete those quizzes by June 26th at 11 p.m. on that Sunday. And then the meeting where we'll actually discuss those things and go over it will be on the 29th. All right. So that's the way you read this. I've got some things in there where I've highlighted some of the bigger things that we have due, index card and resume due. There's a mini project draft charter that's due in week 4, tool plan assignment, week 6, etc. So you'll see those. We'll talk about those as they get a little closer and make a little more sense for everybody. One thing I want to point out, I've got some weekly totals there, and you can see the 11.1 hours weekly total. So if you were trying to do that during a 5-day week, that would mean that you were doing it at a rate of about 2.4 hours a day to complete through that. So I realize that a lot of you won't do that 5-day or 2.4 hours per day, that you'll make for a real miserable Saturday or a real miserable Sunday, where you'll try to plow through all that stuff and get your quizzes done. But it's always good to sort of pace this stuff out and realize ahead of time what you have to accomplish, and come up with a plan for the week as far as how you're going to move through all that material and get that done. Okay. We have, I'll share the next page is the black belt. Let's see here. Why isn't it advancing for me here? And so here's what the black belt, you'll notice some of the numbers on the right-hand side, the totals change a little bit. And then things really change in weeks 8, 9, and 10. So as we're trying to wrap up the class for the green belts, that's when the black belts are really just starting to get into some of the deeper statistical analysis, and there's a lot of extra time on the statistics stuff that start about that point. And then we move into design of experiments in the fall. So as we sort of get into that October fall quarter where Cali Poly starts up, the black belts are going to get into that sort of stuff. So so that's where, as we get down there, you get some things that are the same, but then weeks 8, 9, and 10, things are going to be a little different, and we'll discuss those like during the sessions when we meet. Okay, we'll try to keep everybody on their respective paths. Any questions about what the expectations are or how that lines out for a class? Kibi, do you have a question?
Today, it was in regard of the final exam from the grade belt. It's on a Monday at 3. Is there
Yeah.
any chance we could either move it early, especially with work and everything, or does that have to be at 3 on Monday?
Yeah, we can work on moving that. I
Good.
actually went with the specific final exam period for Cal Poly,
Mm-hmm.
picking that target. But certainly with the summer session, I'm prepared to be a little bit more flexible with when that happens. Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Cool.
Any other questions? All right.
Also, it says like target complete. So typically we want to be completing our week's worth before the next meeting.
Right. But okay, so target complete. So see that little asterisk? So
Yeah.
target complete by Sunday, 11 p.m. So each one of those target complete dates is a Sunday.
Okay.
Okay. And that's
Yeah.
so that's what's going on. You got to finish that quiz by then, and you'll be into the new material by the
Okay.
time we're meeting, potentially. But we're going to discuss the old material at the meeting, and I want everybody to have completed it for the Sunday before. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions?
Hi there, I have a quick question.
Okay, go ahead.
I was wondering, are the quizzes based on completion? Like, is the grade on the completion or the grade that we receive on the quiz?
Okay, so the Morse theme quiz material, which this really primarily refers to, is electronically graded, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of automatic. So you'll get for completing a quiz, you actually get sort of 2 points. So there's you'll get a score, which will go into your quiz average, which is going to be 20% of your grade. And then the on-time completion is going to be worth 3 points, which is actually in a class participation. So it sort of splits out a little bit. So you got the quality piece goes into that 20% quiz grade average. And then the 3 points goes into an on-time performance, which is more of a sort of a class participation. It says you're getting that stuff done on time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Okay. I'll talk a little bit about how we're going to handle an interesting way to handle let me go back here. Handle some of the movie quizzes and the lecture quizzes. So one of the things I'm going to share with you is something that's going to look like this. So this is our scorecard or dashboard for the course. And this is where I track how people are doing on quizzes, percent correct, and then on-time performance for quizzes. And you can see we have, maybe the previous quarter, and then we've got what your quarter is. So we've got a baseline comparison of how previous students have done on that, and then how this class is doing on it. We've got this overall production rate. So you can sort of see, and so black belt people, you have to be a little bit, take this with a grain of salt. I don't have a black belt profile on there. So this is the green belt profile for production rate. But you can kind of see as the numbers of hours per day, how that sort of goes, across the weeks of the course there. So it starts out, a little bit high, goes a little, to a peak, not this week, but next week, and then it drops down, et cetera. The other thing is I've got some other metrics on what people did for their draft project charters, their mini projects, poster mini projects, which is sort of an optional thing, and what they did for on-time completion and average score. You can see that at the bottom. One feature, and Laura and I are going to work on this it's something we're always trying to continuously improve this class. So we try to apply Lean Six Sigma to ourselves, if you will. And one of the things we noted was in grading during the school year, we typically tend to have 80 people in the class. So summer's a little bit light for us with only 35, but we've got the variety to deal with. But one of the things that we want to do is want to have a better sense of control on the movie and lecture quizzes. And one thing that we teach in this course, and we'll learn more about it, is the idea of control charts. And a control chart might be a way to statistically, on a sample basis, decide whether the quality is meeting some sort of production standard. So we became concerned about the quality of the responses on the movie and the lecture quizzes, since these are sort of open format questions where somebody has to write 50 words or less to respond to these questions. Certainly students sort of recognize that, 80 students, could we every week, could we read every one of these things? Well, one of the things we know from a statistical process control standpoint is really to keep the control or to keep the quality level high, we don't have to read every one. We can pull a statistical sample of 5 and read those very thoroughly and completely and use that to assess what the sort of the overall quality is of those responses. So we're going to put together that system. I think it's going to be sort of an interesting experiment. So we'll definitely be able to see whether you've done the quizzes, right? So this is, have you handed something in? Do you have some words in there and things that look like it's about right? And then we're going to pull a subsample of maybe 5 out of the 30 or 35 that are turned in, and we'll do some detailed grading and detailed feedback and use that to control chart. And so instead of this production rate, you might see some movie and lecture quiz control charts that we're using to see how the class is performing. Okay. All right. So
I have a question.
No,
Sorry.
please go ahead.
Also, where is the raise your hand button? Because I keep having to just.
You have to keep on talking. So
Yeah.
raise your hand button is there, do you have like a more sort of symbol in your control panel? Or how about like, could somebody help me out? Is it in manage participant?
It's in the chat. So just press the chat, and then
Okay.
yeah, it's in it.
There
And
we
then
go.
more. Got it.
You got it.
Yeah, thank you.
Wait, then what do I do? Sorry, now I'm lost again. Go to
Now
the
you gotta
chat.
click the participants, and then you will see mute me and raise hand.
Okay, got it.
Can you
Thank
see it? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And then my question was, so when you're doing those random samples of like our responses, does that
Right.
mean like the entire class is going to be getting that average grade, or is that just for like knowledge of how we're doing?
So essentially the grading on the movie quizzes and the lecture quizzes is simple grading, right? So if each one is worth what did I say it was worth 3 points or 6 points? I think each one's worth 6 points. And so if it looks like you made sort of a reasonable effort on doing that, you'll get 5 points or 6 points. If it looks like it's pretty sparse or whatnot, we might give you 4 points or something for that.
Okay.
So that's the kind of grading that's going to be going on. If you sort of think about that, and Laura, this is something, if you could sort of write this down as an action item for us. We talked about this in one of our lean team meetings. We need to do that Pareto chart that shows people what the impact is of quiz performance versus mini project performance versus exam performance. Because if you think about it, 6 points out of 165 points, that's only 10% of your grade. It's pretty small, right? As far as the actual sort of impact.
Yeah.
One of the things we leverage is a human behavior thing. People get all excited about 6 points, but it's a very small percentage of your grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Sure. Okay. So there's that. So speaking about guest speakers, so this is the plan we have lined up for this quarter. So next Wednesday, we're going to have Carlos Garcia is going to talk to us. He's got a lot of experience in the Veterans Administration hospitals and healthcare. So he did a lot of lean implementation in that sphere. So he's going to talk to us. The following week, we got Steve Kane from Gimba Academy is going to speak to us. He's been a operations manager, managed silicon specialty fabricators up in Paso Robles and implemented lean for their organization. We've got Matt Ward, who's an ex-student of mine, who's now up at Amazon up in Seattle. He's just taken a job as one of their operations manager. He's got a lot of lean experience. We've got Chester Matke from Zodiac. We've got Mike Osterling, who's a lean consultant from down in San Diego, is going to be calling in. We've got Vince Ventura, who works in lean healthcare. And then we got Nathan Adair and Amy Johnson. They're going to be calling in from down in Carpinteria from Helical Medical down there. They're a medical device manufacturer that applies lean. So those are some of the guest speakers. We bring those people in to give you a feeling of what, you're learning this stuff, you're seeing it online, but what we want to do is give you a flavor of what people that are really applying this stuff in the real world, what they think about it and how they do it, okay? All right, so spoke to you, said Steve Kane from Gimba Academy is going to be there. We also have access to Gimba Academy. So Gimba Academy is actually maybe a competing product to More Steam. The Gimba Academy approach is just a lot of real short videos about lean concepts. So it's a bunch of 6, 7, 8 minute videos on a lot of the same stuff that we're going to be talking about with More Steam. I will give you one of the assignments is actually going to be a Gimba Academy assignment. So you're going to have to go and watch some videos on Gimba Academy, and that's going to be essentially the movie for the week. I'll provide this link. It'll be on our shared drive or whatever. And for the duration of the class, you can have access to this. If you're at Cal Poly, you have continuous access to this. So this is something that as Central Coast Lean buys access to this for all of Cal Poly. It's about $3,000 a year. So we go ahead and buy that, and anybody from Cal Poly can access this. If you're not from Cal Poly, you at least have it for the duration of this class, okay? But something definitely worth checking out. All right, go back. So policies and procedures, like I said, we try to use lean to teach lean. One of the tenets of lean is respect for people. So we talked about that third part of the definition, people involved in doing the work or engaged in problem solving. You can't do that unless you respect the people and respect their knowledge. So I'm going to respect you guys. I'm going to respect you guys to be honest, to be forthright, and to work with me to make this class better and to get everybody through it. I want you to remember that one of your most valuable personal assets is your integrity. I'm sure some of our more senior people in the class can sort of appreciate in the real world, you take your integrity with you, and I think you can always identify people in an organization that people respect because they're honest and forthright. They do what they say they're going to do. And integrity is something that regardless of the class you're in or the course you're taking, it's something that you can build. And if you hadn't started building your integrity capability, I really encourage you to do it as part of this class. So independence is important, but go ahead and feel free to work together, compare notes. I want you guys to be talking about this, talk about it to other students in the class, talk about it to your bosses, to your family. This is the kind of thing that these concepts get better if they're exercised. One of the things we've done within industrial technology and packaging at Cal Poly is we've developed what we call our value-based ethics approach. And so we've got these six values that I'm going to try to exemplify. And since I'm going public and saying that as a department, we're trying to be honest, we value honesty, respect, responsibility, fairness, compassion, and safety. Whenever I can apply those to some question or issue with regards to the class, I'm going to go ahead and do that, and feel free to call me on that. And finally, you're responsible for anything that is said in the class or any changes that are made to assignments. And this applies, so you don't necessarily have to come to every one of these lectures online. It's a summer class. I want to try to be flexible on these things. If you decide that you want to take a 6-point hit and mix a certain guest speaker, that's going to be fine. Like I said, it doesn't have a huge impact on what your final grade is going to be. But if we do change assignments or there's some adjustments to the class schedule that are made during that lecture period or during these online call-in periods, you're responsible for that. And since we're recording this, we'll go ahead and post it, and you can sort of skim through and watch it. But, that's the way we're going to go ahead and manage this. I think the protocol for if you miss something, email one of those buddies from the chat room or somebody in the class that or have their email and say, hey, what did I miss? You could maybe contact Laura, who will try to sort of help you out. But first check with your fellow students, then with Laura, and last resort, if you need to contact me, please do. But I'm going to also hold you accountable and say, well, why weren't you responsible enough to attend the lecture where we already explained or described that, okay? All right. Now let's talk a little bit about the mini project. And so as part of this class, you have to do a mini project. It's worth 25% of your grade. Essentially, this project is about applying 10 tools from the DMAIC process to some process or problem that you don't own. And by saying that you don't own it, I don't want you to do sort of your personal grooming process or your personal travel planning process. This needs to be a process that is maybe at your workplace if you've got a full-time job or you've got a part-time job. It could be a process in some organization that you deal with. We get a lot of students that do things with different clubs or sororities or fraternities. But you need to find a process that you don't own, that there's somebody else as the sponsor or the owner for this process that you can work with to make some sort of improvement. You'll essentially just have to do 2 tools for each phase. So you have to do 2 tools for define, 2 tools for measure, 2 for analyze, 2 for improve, and 2 for control. You execute each tool. For each tool, you have to say why you applied that particular tool to your project. And then you also have to interpret the results of that tool. So if you did some sort of statistical analysis as your tool, you're going to go ahead to interpret the results of that. We're essentially looking at 1 page for each one of these, right? So each one of these tools might be 10 pages. And then you're also to include an executive summary and some other little bells and whistles. We'll post examples in our shared drive so you can see what those look like. There's a rubric that you can see as far as how we're going to grade this particular project. The next sort of big sort of checkpoint in week 4 is I'm going to ask you to do a draft project charter, which is essentially describes what it is you're going to do for your project, and submit that and get that approved, and then have you go on and execute your project. Any questions about this? about the mini project. We'll talk more about this as we go on, and you, like I said, you can look online and see the example. There's a detailed description of what this looks like in the syllabus also. Ravi, do you have a question?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're talking about the Lean Six Sigma mini project, right?
Right, correct.
I was wondering if you could send me some, give us a sample of like previous student that did it. So that would really help us to just go over and follow the same procedure that they made before.
Yeah. So that's why I said we will on this shared drive when we create it. Laura and I will make sure that we put up some examples of previous ones, especially some good ones that you could go ahead and follow. All right. There's actually, we also have a template that you can use to do this too. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Sure. Any other questions? Okay. Well, at this point, we've kind of got through everything that I wanted to cover. My main goal for this session was to kick you guys off and make sure you're all kind of running in the right direction. So you get the more STEAM quizzes, you get resumes, some index cards, things that you need to do. You need to get ready to watch a movie next week. And I guess my question here at this point is, does anybody have any questions? They feel like they have the capability to go ahead and do those things. They've got access to more STEAM. Maybe we've kind of got to the point where you've actually sort of seen what the quizzes look like. Any questions or technical issues we need to address? I know there was a lot of email traffic in the last couple of days and last week or so as people were actually getting access to more STEAM, and I know there's some struggles with that, and more STEAM had to fix some things, but hopefully everybody's up and running. But
I have a question.
Sure.
I have a question. So earlier you put up a slide about the assignments, and I just wanted to verify that that's going to be emailed to everyone, or how. I didn't take any notes on the exact details for the assignment, so I'm assuming you'll communicate that in some other way.
Well, let's see. So one way that we'll communicate it is I will take these slides that I presented and I will go ahead and post those on the shared drive. So you could go down to that particular slide that had those assignments on it, and you could go ahead and look at it, and that should get you what you need. Right?
Where is the shared drive? Did you go over that already?
No, well, the shared drive doesn't exist yet, but
okay.
right now it's a conceptual shared drive. Yeah, what we talked about is for the purpose of this class, we're going to create a shared drive probably on Google Drive, and we'll let all the students have access to this. So we're going to post various things like this presentation, you know, the link to the movie for next week. I'll repost the syllabi for the different students in the class. So all that stuff will be posted on that shared drive. Well, Laura, let's make a commitment to the students that we'll have that up by. Today is. Can we maybe make a commitment? We'll get that up by 5 p.m. on Friday.
Yeah, and also just jumping in there too, I know like the requirements for this class can sometimes build up just with like more STEAM and some of the quizzes that you have to take elsewhere. So I send out weekly emails to everyone as well, just to kind of clarify what is due and when you have to have it done by. So yeah, I feel like that kind of helps a lot too. So that'll be coming your way as well.
Yeah, and that was an improvement that Laura took the initiative of really sort of implementing that and driving that forward last quarter, and it really seemed to help, and students appreciated it, and I think that's a really good thing. Thanks for letting us know that again, Laura. Thank you. All right, any other questions? Okay, with that, let's see, Laura, did you want to, is there anything in the chat room that anybody that couldn't speak or raise their hands or?
Doesn't look like it. Looks like everything's fine right now, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, okay. All right, looks like we're all set. Okay then, well, I'm gonna, let's go ahead and stop sharing here. And I'm gonna say thank you all for participating in this kickoff session. I'm gonna try to be accessible to everybody, so feel free to shoot me emails if you have questions, but remember our protocol, trying to ask a fellow student or trying to ask Laura if there's some sort of technical thing that you need some sort of help with. But I look forward to working with you all and having a successful start to your lean journey.
Sure.
Okay.
Sir, I have a question.
Oh, sure, Ravi. What's
Laura's email address?
Yeah, that's probably helpful. So my email is, I guess, I don't know if I can, let me just post it in the chat. I think I can see it there. That might be easier.
So Laura's going to go ahead and post her email address in the chat room, I guess. And I think we now have Laura's email address is on the syllabi, right? I have to sort of go back and look. I think I did that.
Yeah, I can't remember if we did that as well. I know last quarter it was on PolyLearn, but not everyone has access to that. So great.
So we'll make sure that'll be one of the things that we'll post too. All right, and I see there's a new message there. And so, and so in the chat room, we've got Laura's email address there.
That's actually calpoly.edu. That's my mistake. Let's see.
Not com.
One more time. Yeah, wasn't thinking.
Okay. Yeah, so it's lasly@calpoly.edu. Okay.
There we go.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Okay, so I'm ready to call tonight. It's now 9:45 my time. So.
All right, sir. Good night.
It's been a long day. All right. Take care to everybody, and we will see you next Wednesday at 5:10 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
All right. All right. Bye.
Adios.